that will shock you. 15. Black celebrities with mental health disorders. You think success means peace of mind? Think again. These 15 black celebrities may have fame, fortune, and fans, but behind the scenes they've battled depression, PTSD, bipolar disorder, and more. Some even came close to ending it all. In a world that tells us to stay silent, they chose to speak out and seek help. Their stories will shock you, inspire you, and maybe even save someone you love. Don't miss a second, hit that subscribe button and join us at Legends of Black Excellence as we uncover the powerful truth behind the spotlight. Dwayne Johnson, widely known as The Rock. Dwayne Johnson has built an empire on charisma, discipline, and resilience. From dominating the wrestling ring in WWE to commanding the big screen in global blockbusters like Jumanji: Fast and Furious, and Black Adam, Johnson appears invincible. However, beyond the action hero persona lies a deeply personal and rarely discussed battle: his fight with mental health. Born in 1972 to a Samoan mother and Black Nova Scotian father, Johnson experienced a turbulent childhood marked by instability, eviction, and financial hardship. At just 15, he witnessed his mother's suicide attempt, a traumatic experience that would later surface in his reflections on mental well-being. While his chiseled physique and unmatched work ethic inspired millions, few knew that Johnson endured episodes of depression that left him feeling isolated and broken. His first major struggle occurred in his early 20s after a football injury shattered his NFL dreams. Speaking candidly in interviews, Johnson admitted to falling into a dark period, describing himself as crying constantly and feeling disconnected from purpose. Another low point came after his breakup with his then-girlfriend, which compounded his sense of failure. For years, Johnson hid these emotions, fearing vulnerability would be seen as weakness. It wasn't until much later in his career that he began to speak openly about his internal battles, posting publicly on social media and granting interviews where he urged men, especially those from minority communities, not to suffer in silence. His honesty has played a pivotal role in reshaping public conversations around mental illness among men and people of color. Johnson has never confirmed a clinical diagnosis, but has emphasized the importance of recognizing symptoms early, seeking therapy, and leaning on trusted support systems. He credits close friends, family, and self-awareness for helping him manage his mental state. He's also advocated for checking in on others, reminding fans that strength isn't about how much one can endure alone, but how willing one is to seek help when needed. Through his transparency, Johnson has emerged as a beacon of hope for fans who see themselves in his journey. He continues to champion emotional health through motivational speaking, charitable initiatives, and his social media platforms, where he frequently offers words of encouragement to those struggling. By revealing his truth, Dwayne Johnson has proven that even the strongest individuals have hidden battles. His willingness to speak out is not only courageous, it's transformative, inspiring a generation to prioritize mental health without shame. Oprah Winfrey, a global symbol of empowerment, philanthropy, and success. Oprah Winfrey has touched millions through her storytelling and advocacy. But behind her media empire lies a powerful testimony of emotional endurance and psychological healing. Throughout her career, Oprah has not only acknowledged her past struggles, but has used them as a catalyst to promote mental health awareness, particularly in communities of color. Born in rural Mississippi in 1954, Oprah endured a deeply traumatic childhood. She was sexually abused by multiple family members and faced poverty, neglect, and instability during her early years. These experiences left lasting emotional scars, but she remained determined to change her circumstances through education and hard work. While her rise to fame is legendary, starting from a local news anchor to becoming the host of The Oprah Winfrey Show, one of the most watched daytime programs in television history, her personal battles with self-worth and internal conflict often simmered beneath the surface. Oprah has publicly revealed that during her teenage years, she experienced bouts of depression, engaged in self-harm, and even contemplated suicide. Her emotional pain was compounded by feelings of shame and the absence of a support system that understood the complexity of mental trauma in young Black girls. As she moved through adulthood, she also struggled with disordered eating and body image issues, which she has candidly discussed on her show and in interviews. Instead of hiding her past, Oprah made it central to her platform. By sharing her story, she gave a voice to those suffering in silence. She used her influence to create space for national conversations around therapy, childhood trauma, sexual abuse, and emotional healing. Her book club choices, televised interviews, and even the OWN network frequently focus on mental and spiritual growth. Oprah's partnership with mental health professionals like Dr. Phil McGraw and Dr. Bruce Perry has further shown her commitment to holistic well-being. She has never hesitated to encourage therapy, journaling, spiritual reflection, and open dialogue as tools for recovery. Her 2021 book with Dr. Perry, What Happened to You, explores how trauma shapes our lives and offers pathways to healing. The book debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list and has been hailed as transformative. Oprah's emotional resilience and public vulnerability have helped destigmatize therapy in the Black community. By transforming her suffering into a powerful message of hope, she's taught millions that pain doesn't define a person. How they respond to it does. Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall's name resonates with NFL fans for his explosive talent as a wide receiver, but his most impactful legacy may come from what he's accomplished beyond football. Unlike many professional athletes who shy away from discussing emotional well-being, Marshall broke the silence surrounding mental illness in sports and did it with raw honesty. Born in Pittsburgh in 1984 and raised in Florida, Marshall built a standout career at the University of Central Florida before being drafted by the Denver Broncos in 2006. Over his 13-season career in the NFL, he played for 6 teams, earning 6 Pro Bowl selections and over 12,000 receiving yards. Yet behind the statistics and the headlines, Brandon was fighting a relentless and invisible battle with his mental health. In 2011, after years of erratic behavior outbursts and strained relationships, Marshall was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, BPD, a complex mental health condition characterized by intense mood swings, unstable relationships, and difficulty regulating emotions. The diagnosis, rather than limiting him, gave him clarity. Instead of keeping it private, he chose transparency. Marshall publicly revealed his condition in 2011 during a press conference, instantly becoming one of the first major professional athletes to openly discuss a severe mental illness. His decision to speak out was bold and unprecedented in the world of competitive sports, where emotional vulnerability is often seen as a liability. Determined to use his experience to help others, Marshall co-founded Project 375 with his wife, Michi. This nonprofit organization is dedicated to eradicating the stigma associated with mental illness, particularly among youth. The project promotes early intervention education and access to treatment through community programs and public awareness campaigns. Marshall has consistently emphasized that therapy, psychiatric support, and self-education were instrumental in his growth. His openness has helped shift the conversation in locker rooms, classrooms, and boardrooms alike. He has since become a prominent mental health advocate, appearing on national platforms like 60 Minutes, CNN, and ESPN, where he has called for more mental health professionals in team environments and improved resources for young people. Even in retirement, Marshall remains committed to the cause. He continues to speak at schools, conferences, and mental health forums, urging others to take their mental health as seriously as physical fitness. He challenges the idea that toughness means silence, proving that true strength lies in acknowledging when you need help and getting it. Brandon Marshall's advocacy has not only changed lives, it's transformed an entire conversation around mental health in sports and beyond. Jennifer Lewis. Jennifer Lewis is often celebrated for her bold, unforgettable screen presence and commanding voice. Known for roles in Blackish, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and countless films, she's affectionately earned the title the Mother of Black Hollywood. But beyond her vibrant on-screen energy lies a deeply personal and transformative journey through mental illness. Born in Kinloch, Missouri in 1957, Lewis always knew she was destined for the stage. She rose to fame with a blend of comedic timing, raw emotion, and powerful vocal talent. But behind the lights and applause, she was wrestling with emotional turmoil that began long before her career took flight. For years, Jennifer struggled with extreme highs and devastating lows, attributing her behavior to her big personality and ambition. However, in her 30s, after decades of emotional chaos, tumultuous relationships, and self-sabotaging behavior, she was officially diagnosed with bipolar disorder. The diagnosis marked a turning point in her life. Instead of hiding her condition, Lewis leaned into it. She began therapy, adhered to medication, and committed herself to a lifestyle of balance and self-awareness. In her powerful 2017 memoir, The Mother of Black Hollywood, she pulls no punches, recounting her journey through trauma, addiction, and recovery. The book not only details her rise in Hollywood, but also becomes a roadmap for those dealing with similar mental health struggles. Her candidness about living with bipolar disorder has made her an icon far beyond entertainment. Lewis has spoken at numerous universities, conferences, and public forums, urging people, especially in the Black community, to take their mental well-being seriously. She routinely emphasizes the importance of early diagnosis, medication compliance, and therapy, shattering the silence that often surrounds mental illness in marginalized communities. Her approach is as dynamic as her acting, honest, humorous, and empowering. Lewis often uses humor to disarm shame, helping others find courage and vulnerability. She's even gone viral multiple times for unapologetically discussing mental health on red carpets, morning shows, and her own social media accounts. Jennifer Lewis's advocacy goes beyond words. She is a living example of how treatment and self-acceptance can lead to stability, creativity, and joy. While many fans know her for her larger-than-life characters, her most impactful role may be the one she plays off-screen as a fearless voice for those struggling with bipolar disorder. By speaking out, Jennifer Lewis has given mental health a seat at the cultural table and inspired countless others to begin their own journey toward healing. Kerry Washington. Kerry Washington, best known for her Emmy-nominated portrayal of Olivia Pope in Scandal, has captivated audiences with her poise, intelligence, and on-screen intensity. But behind the polished image and red carpet elegance, Washington quietly waged a private war with mental health that she kept hidden for years. Born in the Bronx in 1977, Washington excelled in academics and the performing arts, eventually graduating from George Washington University with a degree in anthropology and sociology. From early on, she exhibited the hallmark traits of a high achiever, driven, detail-oriented, and seemingly in control. However, beneath the surface was a toxic perfectionism that manifested into a serious eating disorder in her late teens and early adulthood. In interviews and in her 2023 memoir, Thicker Than Water, Washington revealed that she struggled with both bulimia and compulsive overeating, using food and the control of it as a coping mechanism for stress, anxiety, and emotional suppression. The disorder was deeply intertwined with feelings of inadequacy and a desperate need to appear flawless, both personally and professionally. Washington described that time in her life as shameful and lonely, admitting that while she appeared outwardly successful, she was emotionally unraveling. It wasn't until she began therapy that she fully acknowledged the depth of her disorder and the damage it was doing to her body and psyche. Therapy, she says quite literally, saved her life. Since her recovery, Washington has become a vocal advocate for mental and emotional health. She stresses that seeking help is not a sign of failure, but an act of courage. Her openness has resonated particularly with young Black women who often feel pressure to project strength while neglecting their internal well-being. Beyond her acting, Washington is also a producer, activist, and frequent speaker on issues surrounding mental health, racial justice, and gender equity. She's partnered with organizations like the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, and frequently uses her platform to uplift stories around self-care and emotional honesty. Importantly, she challenges the cultural myth that vulnerability is weakness. Washington has said, "I love my therapist. Therapy saved my life." Her willingness to admit to her past struggles with body image and emotional instability has helped normalize therapy and mental health conversations in Hollywood and beyond. Kerry Washington's journey from secret suffering to self-empowerment is not just inspiring, it's a reminder that healing is possible when we choose to face ourselves with honesty and compassion. Michelle Williams. Michelle Williams, known worldwide as one-third of the legendary R&B group Destiny's Child, helped shape the sound of the late 90s and early 2000s. With chart-topping hits like Survivor and Say My Name, Williams stood beside Beyoncé and Kelly Rowland as a vocal powerhouse. Yet behind the harmonies and bright stage lights, Michelle carried a heavy burden, one she kept hidden for years. Born in Rockford, Illinois in 1979, Tenitra Michelle Williams grew up singing in the church. Music was always a refuge, and gospel remained her first love, even as she transitioned into mainstream fame. When she joined Destiny's Child in 2000, Williams was catapulted into the spotlight almost overnight. While the success was undeniable, the pressure to maintain a flawless image weighed heavily on her. In a groundbreaking 2017 appearance on The Talk, Williams bravely shared that she had been battling clinical depression since her teenage years. In her 2021 memoir, Checking In, she recounts her battles with depression, the toll it took on her relationships, including her high-profile engagement, and how therapy, faith, and honesty became her healing tools. The book encourages readers to check in with themselves, their emotions, and their support systems regularly. Michelle now uses her voice not just to sing, but to empower others. She's partnered with mental health initiatives, appeared on panels, and launched a podcast focused on emotional wellness. Her courage has opened doors for dialogue, particularly in gospel circles, where mental illness is often misunderstood. By speaking up, Michelle Williams has dismantled stereotypes, inspired others to seek support, and reminded the world that even survivors need saving sometimes. Chris Brown. Chris Brown rose to fame as a teenage sensation in the mid-2000s with his self-titled debut album showcasing dazzling vocals and electrifying dance moves. Hits like Run It With You and Forever cemented his place in R&B history. However, behind the fame and spotlight, Brown has endured a long, complicated journey with mental health, one he eventually chose to face head-on. Born in 1989 in Tappahannock, Virginia, Brown experienced domestic violence early in life, witnessing his mother being abused by her partner. This traumatic environment left a deep imprint on his emotional development. As his stardom exploded, unresolved pain and untreated psychological issues began to surface in troubling ways. In 2014, during a court-ordered rehab stay following legal troubles, Chris Brown was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and severe insomnia, according to a report submitted to a Los Angeles judge. These revelations provided important context for years of erratic behavior, violent outbursts, and substance misuse that had plagued his public image. Brown's mental health treatment became a condition of his probation, prompting him to begin a structured program of therapy, medication, and lifestyle changes. While the journey was neither linear nor free of controversy, Brown gradually began addressing his mental health more openly, at least behind the scenes. Reports from rehabilitation centers emphasized his compliance with treatment and progress in anger management. Though he hasn't frequently spoken in depth about his diagnosis in interviews, Brown has alluded to his inner struggles through music and social media. His 2017 documentary, Welcome to My Life, offered a rare, raw glimpse into the emotional consequences of childhood trauma fame at a young age and public scrutiny. It was one of the few times fans saw the depth of pain he had carried silently. Critics and supporters alike acknowledge that addressing mental illness doesn't erase accountability, but it does shed light on the psychological turmoil that can accompany unresolved trauma. Brown's situation opened up wider conversations about the intersection of mental health, celebrity pressure, and public redemption. In recent years, the singer has focused more intently on creative expression and fatherhood while continuing to manage his condition. Though not as publicly vocal about therapy as others on this list, his medical diagnoses have been substantiated through legal documents and clinical reports. Chris Brown's story is a complex one, but at its heart is a man confronting deep emotional wounds, navigating the consequences, and doing the difficult work of healing from within. Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg is one of the few entertainers to have achieved EGOT status, winning an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony Award. Known for her sharp wit, fearless commentary, and trailblazing career, Goldberg has long been a force in entertainment and activism. But beneath her commanding presence is a history of emotional trauma that led to lasting psychological effects. Born Karen Elaine Johnson in New York City in 1955, Goldberg faced significant challenges growing up in a housing project in Manhattan. She dropped out of high school and battled drug addiction in her youth, later crediting theater and mentorship as lifelines that helped her reclaim a sense of purpose. One of the most profound emotional events in her life occurred in 1978 when she witnessed a devastating airplane collision in San Diego. She was staying at a friend's house when she saw two planes crash mid-air, a traumatic event that triggered severe symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD). In interviews, Goldberg has described the experience as haunting, noting that it led to long-standing fears of flying as well as panic attacks that would sometimes paralyze her. For many years, Goldberg avoided air travel altogether. Even at the height of her career, she would opt for cross-country bus rides to attend award shows and filming commitments. It wasn't until she underwent therapy and took part in a specialized flight anxiety program that she began to manage her symptoms more effectively. She also worked with professionals who helped her address the lingering trauma from both her past and the crash. Goldberg has been a quiet yet consistent voice in the mental health conversation. Though she doesn't often make public statements about her condition, she has on several occasions emphasized the importance of seeking help and speaking with professionals, especially for those dealing with trauma, grief, or fear. During her time as a co-host on The View, she has used her platform to support mental health discussions, often encouraging guests and viewers to take care of their emotional well-being and reject the shame attached to psychological struggles. Her journey is a testament to the fact that trauma doesn't always disappear. It must be faced, understood, and worked through. By continuing to show up in the public eye, by getting on planes after decades of fear, and by discussing her experience with honesty, Whoopi Goldberg reminds us that healing from trauma is possible even if it takes time. Cheryl James. Cheryl James, better known as Salt from the iconic hip-hop group Salt and Peppa, made history as one of the first women to dominate a male-dominated genre. With empowering anthems like Push It Shoop and Let's Talk About Sex, the trio didn't just entertain, they educated and uplifted women across generations. But while Cheryl projected confidence on stage, her personal journey behind the scenes was far more complex. Born in Brooklyn, New York in 1966, James co-founded Salt and Peppa in the mid-1980s with Sandra Denton Peppa and DJ Spinderella. The group quickly rose to fame for their bold lyrics, trailblazing image, and unapologetic approach to female empowerment. But as the group's success soared, Cheryl quietly began to experience a private, painful struggle with her mental health. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, Cheryl battled with an eating disorder, a condition often rooted in the desire for control amidst chaos. She has spoken openly about how fame, body image pressures, and the demands of touring took a toll on her emotional well-being. At times, the disorder left her feeling spiritually and physically drained. In interviews, Cheryl revealed that even while fans saw her as strong and vibrant, she was silently grappling with feelings of inadequacy and overwhelming stress. Her internal struggles eventually led her to step away from the spotlight. She took a significant hiatus from the music industry to focus on her health, her faith, and rediscovering a sense of purpose outside of celebrity. During this period, she deepened her Christian faith, which became a cornerstone of her healing process. Cheryl credits her spirituality therapy and emotional introspection for helping her recover and regain balance in her life. In recent years, Cheryl has used her platform to speak candidly about the importance of mental health, particularly within the entertainment industry, where pressures to maintain perfection often discourage vulnerability. She emphasizes that healing doesn't come overnight, but requires honesty, self-compassion, and often professional help. Her return to the stage with Salt and Pepper was not just a musical comeback, it was a personal victory. Cheryl emerged more grounded, self-aware, and committed to encouraging others to prioritize their mental and emotional well-being. By choosing to be transparent about her eating disorder and emotional struggles, Cheryl James has become more than a hip-hop pioneer. She's a voice for resilience, reminding us all that sometimes the bravest act is stepping back and learning to care for yourself first. Alicia Keys. Alicia Keys has long embodied artistic grace, authenticity, and emotional depth. From her breakout hit Fallen to her global influence as a 15-time Grammy Award-winning artist, Keys built a career on soul-stirring melodies and poetic vulnerability. Yet for years behind her flawless performances and radiant persona, Alicia was silently contending with emotional unrest, burdens she hadn't fully processed until adulthood. Born in the Hell's Kitchen neighborhood of Manhattan in 1981, Alicia Ojello Cook was raised by her mother in a single-parent household. A prodigy from a young age, she began playing classical piano at 6 and was signed to Columbia Records as a teenager. Her rapid rise to stardom made her an instant icon. But with global fame came relentless pressure to be perfect, to always perform, and to fit the mold others expected of her. In multiple interviews, and in her 2020 memoir, More Myself, Alicia opened up about experiencing episodes of depression, anxiety, and emotional suppression, especially during the peak of her early success. She admitted to smiling through her pain and suppressing her own identity in order to please the public, her label, and even her closest relationships. The turning point came in her 30s when she began questioning who she really was underneath the accolades. She acknowledged she had become emotionally detached, disconnected from her intuition, and afraid to voice her true feelings. Therapy, journaling, and meditation became essential tools in helping her untangle the internal conflict she had long buried. Alicia made a radical shift toward transparency and self-care. One of her most visible decisions was her no makeup movement, which she began in 2016 as a personal protest against the beauty expectations placed on women in entertainment. Though seemingly surface level, it was deeply symbolic of her emotional rebirth, a rejection of performance perfection, and an embrace of self-worth. Through her nonprofit, She is the Music Keys also champions wellness and empowerment for women in the music industry, encouraging conversations around mental health and self-expression. She has spoken publicly about the need for therapy in Black communities and continues to advocate for emotional intelligence and healing in her music and interviews. Her evolution wasn't just professional, it was spiritual and psychological. Alicia Keys now uses her story to encourage others to unlearn the idea that vulnerability equals weakness. In reclaiming her mental and emotional balance, Alicia Keys found not just peace, but power, and she's using it to help others do the same. Wayne Brady. Wayne Brady is best known for making people laugh. As the quick-witted star of Whose Line Is It Anyway, host of Let's Make a Deal, and a Broadway performer with remarkable versatility, his improvisational talent and charming personality have made him a beloved figure in entertainment. But few knew that behind the glowing smile was a man quietly battling the darkness of clinical depression. Born in Columbus, Georgia in 1972 and raised in Orlando, Florida, Brady developed a love for performance early on. Comedy, singing, and acting became both an outlet and a shield, a way to mask the insecurities and sadness he carried from childhood. Raised by his grandmother after his mother left for work opportunities, Brady often felt abandoned and isolated, which planted the early seeds of emotional struggle. For decades, he hid his pain behind humor. The more success he achieved, the more pressure he felt to maintain an image of positivity. But internally, Brady was unraveling. He later described himself as someone who could make the world laugh while crying inside. On his 42nd birthday in 2014, it all came to a breaking point. He suffered a complete emotional collapse, a moment he would later describe as one of the darkest days of his life. Brady eventually sought help through therapy support from loved ones and intentional healing practices. In interviews, he's credited fellow comedian and close friend Aisha Tyler for being by his side during his breakdown, reminding him that he wasn't alone and encouraging him to confront his pain head-on. Since then, Wayne Brady has become a rare voice in male celebrity culture, especially among Black men, openly discussing mental illness without shame. He's used his platform to advocate for mental health awareness, particularly encouraging men to dismantle the harmful idea that seeking help is a sign of weakness. Suffering in silence is not strength, he once said in an interview. Being vulnerable and getting help is. In recent years, Brady has spoken about developing healthier routines, including therapy, mindfulness practices, and being honest about his emotions. He's also emphasized the importance of co-parenting peacefully with his ex-wife Mandy Takeda, who remains one of his strongest sources of support. By stepping out of the shadows and telling the truth about his inner struggles, Wayne Brady has turned his pain into purpose. His story reminds us that healing doesn't require fame or talent. It requires honesty, bravery, and the willingness to begin again. DMX. Earl Simmons, better known to the world as DMX, was a lyrical force of nature. With a growl in his voice and unmatched raw energy, he redefined hardcore rap in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Albums like It's Dark and Hell is Hot. And then there was X and Flesh of My Flesh. Blood of My Blood became anthems for a generation. But beneath the aggressive sound and intense performances lay a deeply wounded soul grappling with profound mental illness. DMX's early life was shaped by trauma. Born in Mount Vernon, New York in 1970 and raised in the rough neighborhoods of Yonkers, he endured physical abuse, abandonment, and life in group homes from an early age. At just 14, a trusted adult laced his marijuana with crack cocaine, an event that led to a lifelong battle with addiction. Yet what remained less discussed publicly until later was his ongoing struggle with bipolar disorder. Throughout his career, Simmons exhibited behavior consistent with bipolar symptoms: frequent mood swings, extreme emotional highs and lows, impulsive actions, and depressive episodes. In interviews and through his music, he acknowledged hearing voices, experiencing inner turmoil, and feeling spiritually torn. Songs like Slippin' and I Miss You revealed a man crying out for peace while battling inner demons. DMX did seek professional help several times. He entered rehab facilities on multiple occasions, not just for substance use, but for mental health treatment. In a 2013 interview, he confirmed he had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and admitted that his spiritual beliefs and past traumas often clashed with the reality of needing psychiatric support. He described his mind as being in constant conflict, saying, "There are two people inside me. They're fighting all the time." Despite his challenges, Simmons remained deeply spiritual, often praying publicly and citing faith as a cornerstone of his survival. He also began to speak more openly about the importance of mental health, particularly for young Black men who, like him, were told to be strong and silent in the face of pain. Tragically, DMX passed away in April 2021 after a drug-induced heart attack, leaving behind a legacy of gritty truth, vulnerability, and artistry. His death was a painful reminder of the unrelenting toll untreated trauma and mental illness can take. Yet in life, DMX showed us that being real about pain isn't weakness, it's part of the fight. His story continues to inspire critical conversations about emotional healing therapy and the urgent need for compassion within and beyond the music industry. Janet Jackson. Janet Jackson is one of the most influential entertainers in the history of music and pop culture. From the control-themed empowerment of her 1986 breakout album Control to the socially conscious rhythms of Rhythm Nation 1814, she has continually shaped the sound and message of her generation. While her career has been defined by reinvention and resilience, Janet's personal journey has included quiet yet significant struggles with depression, a reality she kept hidden for much of her life. Born into the famous Jackson family in 1966, Janet was thrust into the entertainment spotlight from an early age. While her brothers were dominating music charts with the Jackson 5, she quickly emerged as a star in her own right. But being in the public eye coupled with the pressure of expectations eventually took a toll on her emotional health. In a deeply candid 2011 interview with Essence magazine, Janet Jackson revealed that she had suffered from a deep and lingering depression that lasted for years, particularly in the late 1990s. She described the experience as intense, saying, "I struggled with depression. The struggle was there even before the fame. The causes," she explained, were layered, stemming from childhood insecurity, body image issues, failed relationships, and the weight of perfectionism. Despite her fame and success, Janet found herself internally unfulfilled and emotionally depleted. The contrast between her glamorous public image and her private battles only deepened the isolation. She noted that depression can be particularly insidious because it doesn't always have an obvious cause, and that made her feel even more confused and ashamed. For years, Jackson chose not to speak publicly about her struggles, fearing judgment and misunderstanding. But as mental health discussions began to enter mainstream dialogue, she decided to share her truth, recognizing the power of her story to inspire others. In later interviews and through her 2011 book, True You: A Journey to Finding and Loving Yourself, she revealed that her healing came through self-reflection therapy, prayer, and finally learning to love herself without conditions. Jackson also emphasized how damaging societal pressures, especially for Black women in entertainment, can be to one's sense of worth. By acknowledging her depression, she encouraged others, particularly women of color, to reject the stigma surrounding emotional health. Today, Janet continues to advocate for authenticity, self-care, and the power of speaking openly about mental wellness. Her courage in unveiling her truth reminds fans that no matter how iconic a person may be, they are human first, and healing begins when we stop hiding. Fantasia Barrino. Fantasia Barrino's rise to stardom was nothing short of meteoric. In 2004, she won the third season of American Idol with a powerhouse voice that left audiences stunned. Her debut single, I Believe, topped the Billboard Hot 100, making her an instant star. But while the spotlight shined bright, few could see the darkness she was quietly navigating behind the scenes. Born in High Point, North Carolina in 1984, Fantasia grew up singing gospel in church. Her life was marked by adversity early on, dropping out of high school, becoming a teen mother at 17, and facing poverty before fame arrived. Although her victory on American Idol transformed her public image overnight, it didn't erase the emotional wounds she carried. Fantasia later revealed that she struggled with severe depression, worsened by the pressures of fame, financial mismanagement, personal betrayals, and constant scrutiny from the media. The tipping point came in 2010 when she was hospitalized following a suicide attempt. According to her own admission in interviews and her memoir, Life Is Not a Fairy Tale, she took an overdose of aspirin and sleeping pills after reaching what she called rock bottom. In a candid interview with VH1's Behind the Music, Fantasia admitted she felt worthless, overwhelmed, and alone. "I just wanted it all to be over," she confessed. The public's judgment over her personal relationships and relentless tabloid attention contributed heavily to her mental state. But it was also a wake-up call. Following the incident, Fantasia chose to seek professional help. She began therapy, leaned into her faith, and made radical changes to her lifestyle, including setting boundaries in her career and personal life. She returned to music not just as a performer, but as a woman determined to reclaim her peace. Her comeback was more than professional, it was spiritual and emotional. She received critical acclaim for her later albums, earned a Grammy Award, and even appeared on Broadway. Most importantly, she began openly discussing mental health in interviews, especially emphasizing the importance of support systems, counseling, and self-forgiveness. Fantasia's story is particularly powerful because it highlights the unique challenges Black women in the public eye face, expected to be strong, flawless, and resilient, often at the cost of their own mental well-being. By sharing her most vulnerable moments, Fantasia transformed her narrative from tragedy to testimony. She continues to be an advocate for mental health, using her platform to remind others it's okay to not be okay, and asking for help is the first step toward healing. Kid Cudi. Scott Mescudi, professionally known as Kid Cudi, emerged in the late 2000s as a unique force in hip-hop. With his breakout hit Day and Night, he captured a feeling of loneliness and emotional conflict rarely expressed so vulnerably in rap music. Over the years, Cudi would become much more than a musician. He became a lifeline for many young people battling mental health issues, particularly within the Black community. Born in Cleveland, Ohio in 1984, Cudi experienced the loss of his father at the age of 11, a devastating event that deeply shaped his emotional landscape. As he navigated adolescence and early adulthood, unresolved grief, anxiety, and depression followed him. While fame brought him recognition, it also magnified his inner struggles. In October 2016, Cudi made headlines when he shared a deeply personal Facebook post revealing that he had checked himself into rehab for depression, suicidal thoughts, and anxiety. "I am not at peace. I haven't been since you've known me," he wrote. The honesty of that statement reverberated through the music world and beyond. For many fans, it was the first time they saw a prominent Black male artist openly admit to needing help. His decision to go public was transformative. It broke barriers in hip-hop, a genre where emotional vulnerability in men had long been viewed as taboo. Rather than damage his image, Cudi's confession deepened his cultural impact. Artists like Travis Scott, Jaden Smith, and even Kanye West have cited him as a major influence, not just musically but emotionally. Since seeking treatment, Cudi has continued to advocate for mental wellness through his music interviews and public appearances. Albums like Man on the Moon 3, The Chosen explore themes of inner battles, existential reflection, and the search for healing. In 2022, he released a Netflix animated series and companion album, Intergalactic, further blending art and mental health storytelling. Cudi also actively promotes therapy and emotional openness among men, especially men of color. He frequently uses his platform to encourage fans to speak to someone, journal, meditate, and practice self-care tools that have helped him manage his own journey. His transparency has saved lives. Many fans credit Kid Cudi for giving them the courage to seek help, to feel less alone, and to embrace their emotions without shame. By showing the world that even its heroes can hurt, Kid Cudi became something rare, a superstar who made it cool to care about your mind. Mental health doesn't discriminate. It touches even the most powerful voices in Black excellence. From the stage to the screen, these 15 celebrities showed us that seeking help is not weakness, but wisdom. Their bravery has sparked conversations our community can no longer afford to avoid. At Legends of Black Excellence, we honor not just their talent, but their truth. Which story moved you the most? Do you think the stigma around mental health is finally fading, or do we still have work to do? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're listening. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories.